Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my stream. This is Asian Mental Health Talks, inspired by my Golden Goddess affirmation cards that you can get on my website. Let me actually pin that at the bottom here. Today, we are talking about Filipino representation because I am Filipino and it is Filipino History/Heritage Month, at least in America. So yay, Filipino friends. Hello. I am here and I am super Filipino. The first thing I want to say, we've actually done this affirmation card before, but that's totally fine. So today, no one can take away my heritage or history. At the same time, it is up to me to discover and embrace that knowledge. So as I've said before, this one is very, well, they're my words and I wrote them, but this first part is very important to me. No one can take away my heritage or history because though I am Filipino, to most people, I do not look Filipino. Even to this day, I get not very nice or polite responses of people really questioning me. Like, no, you're not really Filipino, right? Like, you got to be half or something, or straight up rejecting the fact that I'm Filipino, though I'm Filipino. So that is never fun. It's what happened. So, like I said, no one can take away your heritage or history, even though I might not look whatever traditionally Filipino means. I am definitely Filipino. I am Igorot. I know where my family is from. I have the blood of my ancestors, and no one can change that. And that's like a really big thing. Other part. At the same time, it is up to me to discover and embrace that knowledge, right? It is up to us to embrace our heritage and our history. It really is. And, I'm Filipino, and I think that's a very big part of me. I do feel that it's a very big part of my identity, whether or not I actually want to admit it at times, because being Filipino doesn't just come with, looking a certain way. It comes with growing up a certain way, right? It comes with being raised with specific values. It also comes with, for me, being a child of immigrants from the Philippines, and has that experience and sometimes like trauma, right? The trauma of being an immigrant and coming to a new world. That's like my parents. That's what they went through. And though it was a good thing, obviously there were some things traumatizing about it. So that's also like a part of my history and a part of my story too. And it's something that I don't actually think I became very aware or very cognizant, like really cognizant, until maybe like last year, right? Like, what does that even mean? And how has that affected me as a person, my identity, but also how has it affected me psychologically and mentally? Those are things that are important for us to understand and knowing yourself, knowing your history, knowing your family's history. It's not just about like, oh yay, we know each other. And even that in itself can be really great, and it can be really healing. It can be really gathering. It can bring families and people together, and that's beautiful. But again, like, knowing your history is smart. It's like knowing like your medical history, right? If you know your medical history, you can help traverse forward in a healthier life. Same thing with knowing your history, where you're from, like your background, and that it, I think, can really help you traverse your life better in a more healthy way, whether that means physically or that means mentally. For me, when I think about it a lot, I think of mentally, right? I'm a mental health advocate. I really focus on that. Again, like I said, I'm really trying to understand what it is, what trauma happens to immigrants and what sacrifices immigrants really make, even though like I know that, obviously I know that has been ingrained into my head that my parents have sacrificed for me. I know that. So going farther than just knowing that and acknowledging that, like, what does that actually mean? How has that impacted them? How has that impacted my life? What disconnects were made from coming to America, whether they be cultural, what things were taken along. Like, luckily for me, my parents, they're Igorot, and they helped started the chapter of BBOC in Northern California for our specific tribes. And so I've at least had my history and my culture like with me since I was little. And honestly, I hella did not appreciate any of that until I got older. Because unfortunately for me growing up, sometimes you can mix up, muddle perhaps things, family trauma with being Filipino, or at least that's what I did, right? Filipinos are the people most around me. And so there are definitely parts of my family that had a lot of drama and created a lot of trauma with the trauma. And in my head, those two things associated. So to be perfectly honest, there is part of my mind growing up young that kind of went, being Filipino is not that great, because I associate it with all that trauma, with all this pettiness that I experienced as a child and my family went through. And then getting older, I'm like, yeah, definitely some of that had to do with values and stuff. But then some of that really just had to do with people being crappy. And that's real too. Not them being Filipino, just them being crappy. And to acknowledge that and know that and understand that, you know, I've pulled myself throughout my life. There have been times where I've pulled myself away from my own heritage, from my own identity. That's important to recognize and know so that I can come back to it when I want to, and I do want to. So that's really important. And I think, you know, being proud and wanting to connect to your past and to your heritage is obviously like the first step really to representation. Why are you going to rep something that you don't really even care about or you think is bad? So for me, in the past couple of years, Filipino representation has been really big. It's been really big for me, and it's been really beautiful finding even more spaces, whether it came about with the surge of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 and all the things that came up with, you know, Filipinos for Black Lives Matters and all the workshops that I attended and Asians for Black Lives Matters, and seeing that and people, you know, going through the history of why Asian Pacific Islanders have been pitted against Black people, you know, the model minority myth and all of that, and understanding that has been really helpful. It has helped me to want to know my roots better, which I think has been great. Also, San Diego Filipino Cinema, yo, shout out. They're having their first Filipino Film Festival in San Diego this month, in San Diego, but it starts next week. We just had our celebration on Monday, but there's a bunch of great stuff coming. I'll be a moderator. So being part of the San Diego Filipino Cinema has been really great to really feel like, oh, I have this group here in San Diego of Filipinos that I can attach to, because it's not just my heritage, it's not just feeling Filipino, but it's like artistic people. So that's been really great for me. Also, the Film Collective with Marissa and Adrian that we started has been really great, and meeting and learning about new Filipino creatives has also been really great, because that representation is important to me, not just because I believe that Filipino representation in the media is important, but because for me as a Filipino, as a young Asian American, again, parents of immigrants, being a creative was not so great for my parents, right? And I think that's something that is an ongoing trope right now in our stories of Asian Americans, right? Your family wants you to have a secure job. They want you to be a doctor. They want you to be a nurse. And you're like, I'm going to be a dancer. I'm going to be a filmmaker. And thus fights, right? So it's been really great for me to have those two things that always felt as at odds to be actually on the same time, on the same side. And for me then to really want to represent and showcase that representation in that side, that's usually like, no, artist, just doctor, right? So that's been a really great place for me to be. And so here I am saying representation is really important, and it really is, and not just in the media and everything, but also in other places, whether that be in STEM, right? Science, math, all that good stuff, engineering. what is the technology? I was like, I'm missing something. It's because when I think engineering, I automatically think like a software engineer because my boyfriend's a software engineer, but those are two different engineerings. But yes, anyways, we need representation everywhere. And for me, that really includes the mental health space. Do I mean that as professionals? I do. Do I mean that as not professionals and people just talking? I do. I really do. And I always say this. You don't need to be a professional for your story to matter or for your words to matter. Does that mean you should go out and spread all this misinformation for no reason? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying your story is valid. I was going to say major. I am an expert on my story and my life, right? So I can talk about it, and that's my story to share. And it's my story to share, and if I don't share it, other people are going to want to share it for me. So I am not a mental health professional. I did take psych. That was one of my majors, and I've been to lots of different therapies, so I've learned lots of different techniques and stuff. And that's where I share from, and I think that's really important. And I think it's really important for us as Filipinos to be able to talk about our mental health and to be able to talk about our emotions, because again, there's a lot of not just culture necessarily, but the need of survival that we learned from our parents and from before. And, if you're in poverty, obviously survival, needing to pay the rent is like a big thing. And those things are really important. Of course, they're important. So my hopes is as we progress and the generations go on, that we make it important and we represent ourselves by saying, we do have mental health too. Filipino mental health matters. Of course it matters. Does it make all these other problems go away? No, but they can also exist. We can have our problems and we can address them. We can say, that we feel tired, that we feel run down, that we feel like we're breaking because the way we live is very hard. If you immigrated to this country and you're not, my dad was a janitor at first, like that's what he did. That's all he could get at first. And so that's what he did. The parents from my place lived in America first. Holy moly. Super run down, weird apartment that's now alone on the train tracks. It wasn't a great place. So of course, they struggled. And I think it's okay to talk about that. And for them and for us, if we're in that same situation and we're struggling, to say like, I am struggling and I'm feeling really tired and this is super hard, without feeling guilty that that saying that we're tired doesn't mean that we're ungrateful for opportunities we have, right? As time progresses, and we are in America now. My parents brought me here so I could have a better life. And for me, really a big part of that is being able to have things like emotions and healing and professional help that they didn't have or didn't think was like a real possibility. You know what I mean? Or is a new idea. And that can still be a new idea in our Asian cultures and groups, and that's okay. But again, as we progress, and I am the person born here and stuff, like I want to make sure that I don't just progress financially. As an artist, it's just really funny for me to say progress financially and education wise. I have a bachelor's in psychology and I have a bachelor's in dance, right? And, my parents wanted me to be more educated. And I also do believe that education stuff means my mental health, that I get to have these opportunities to really take care of myself, not to just go to the doctor and get freaking contacts at the optometrist, but being able to go to a therapist and really get help with how I'm feeling. And so the more of us who are ready to share, who can share, I think the better. And there are so many places that we can occupy as professionals and as just people. I think it's really important, and I think it can only help us to really speak. And when it comes to mental health awareness, I really want to be clear in what like I believe mental health awareness, especially for Filipino Americans, is really important, not only because it helps us understand ourselves and accept ourselves, but going back to that idea, that awareness is important so that we can get the help we need, the professional help we need to live better lives. Yes, awareness. Sometimes when people talk about awareness for things, it just kind of stops at awareness, which I don't know. I don't feel so great about. In my head, I'm like, awareness, but why? Yes, it's great to know that things exist, but it's just like, okay, but what else? Or like, what's next? Like, what do I do with this awareness? And it's just like, accept, you can accept that you're a human and you're not broken, but also it's so that you can go get the help that you need, so you can seek help, so that you don't just have to like live in this and accept, just be like, oh, this is how my life is, but this is what it is, right? Like, mental illness is real. Yes, it is real. And then because we know that and we're aware, there are things that we can do. And that's the big part. There are things that we can do to live better. So I will say again, and I guess I'm kind of asking, but not really, because if you're not ready to talk about your mental health, if you're scared, it's your life, it's your decision, but if you're ready, if you don't feel scared, it's important to speak about your mental health. It's important for you as a Filipino to become what you actually want to be. If that's an actual nurse and doctor, hell yeah, that's awesome. But if that's a dancer, hell yeah to that too. If that means, you're going to be a software engineer or like a video game designer, yes, we need to represent everywhere, so that we know, and the future knows, the more Filipinos in the future know that like they can actually be at anything they want. They can actually do anything. So maybe also I should probably like mention like politics and stuff. We can also represent in politics somewhere if we really want to. Our stories are important, and it's valid to speak from where our actual experiences. I keep trying to say experiments. Experiences are. That's important. And when we don't know about something, we can look to other people that we know and ask them, ask the experts. I go to therapy because even though I'm an expert on my life and I know my history with my mental illnesses and stuff, I go to experts when I reach a certain point, because it's like, oh, well, if I've used up all my coping mechanisms and I'm still not doing really well, maybe there's something else I'm missing. So I'm going to go see a professional. Awareness, right? That's that awareness, where that awareness leads to us taking action and living better lives. And I think that's where I'm going to end today. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm super hungry. I'm just going to add that in there. That's really what keeps going through my head. I'm hungry. Thank you for joining me. It is Filipino History Month. It's Filipino Heritage Month. Again, if you are in San Diego, the first San Diego Filipino Film Festival is this month. So please look San Diego Filipino Cinema up. You can actually find some information with them. They're on my stories right now if you want to get some tickets to some cool movies and help see us, but also if you're Filipino, like, help with that representation. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I will actually see you guys tomorrow, and we'll be talking about CPTSD and shame. So thanks for being here. Make sure you are taking care of yourselves. Oh, I got to do this one more time. Golden Goddess affirmation cards. They're on my website. The affirmation we read today: no one can take away my heritage or history. At the same time, it is up to me to discover and embrace that knowledge. Bye, guys.